So I guess we were talking about how we would go about. You just said something about child's child protective services.
Yeah, in
very
LA
powerful.
County, it's called
Yeah.
it's called DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services. So if I use CPS, that's the same type of agency. They're under the same auspices.
Yeah.
The names are interchangeable depending on what part of the state you're in.
Well, basically, what I was thinking of is like, since basically you told me that you were a product of that system, that you came from, you were placed from an orphanage, or how do you say it?
What happened was in the 60s when I was placed in foster care. I was born in 63. I was placed in foster care in 65, and again in the Blanco foster home in 67. Now, I was able to visit my mom. One of the concerns I had, and this is over time, I put this together from what I remembered and what my foster parents told me. The social worker decided, and this was run by DPSS back then. DPSS, the Department of Social Services. The guys who hand out the welfare checks, the Medi-Cal, the GR, they were running it. And they had full access to MDH, mental health department, and they were able to over-medicate kids. About the time that I entered it was at its height of fraud. The social worker had learned about a new program. Again, this is from hindsight, where UCLA was experimenting with drugs to program children. They wanted to try it on children. I heard...
You're talking about MK Ultra type stuff? Or along that lines?
Along that lines, they thought that they can use some of these drugs to help children overcome trauma. That was the excuse. But it was a full-on hypnosis. I was in the UCLA office. I'll tell you everything I remember during that visit. But first, let me lay in the background. My mother was visiting me all the time. She was never allowed to be alone with me, which basically I always wanted to tell her what was happening in the foster home because I was being tortured. The foster, the daughter was using the kids to abuse me. So what happened was, she was allowed to give me a bath for the first time. Now, there was no lock on the door. They could have came in at any time. But instead, 3 police officers busted in the door. They actually kicked it in. And they drugged me out of the tub, butt naked. They drugged my mother out, put her in handcuffs, and sent her away. I wasn't able to visit her anymore.
How old were you?
I was young, about 7 years old, maybe 4 to 7, somewhere between 4 to 7. This was early on while I was still allowed to visit my mother, while the case was still going on. I think the case ended in 69 or 71.
What?
Don't quote me because I don't have a lot of my documents.
I know. We're not going to hold you down to dates, but like, what was your understanding of why they bursted in like that and all of a sudden?
Knowing child services and everything that goes on now, I suspect that they basically laid a fraud on her that she was molesting me in the tub. There was no lock on the tub, on the bathroom. They could have walked in at any single time.
And it was a supervised visit, you're saying?
Yeah, it was it was supposed to, and they allowed her for the first time to give me a bath. And that's one of the requirements. She jumped at the chance because one of the requirements that she proved that she can take care of me. Now, any foster parent would jump at that because the lawyers tell her that. But here's the deal. They don't allow the parents unsupervised visit if they want to take the kid. Because unsupervised visits mean that the parent is capable of taking their kid unsupervised.
Yeah.
But if they want to adopt that child out, they won't let that, and they can't. The parents have no hope whatsoever of demonstrating to the court that they can take care of a child. So basically, the argument from the commissioner in my case all the way down to the department is basically blocked intentionally to defraud the public, defraud the parents of their child, and defraud the public of their taxpayer dollars. Now, what happened was, she was arrested. I was taken the very next morning to UCLA. I was in there. There was an army man set on the floor, interlocking tiles that looked like something out of Laos or Vietnam. They had the little palm trees that fit into holes. They had the soldiers. They had a lean-to, which I learned just recently was actually a MASH unit, a frontline MASH unit with 2 doctors or 2 medics and just basically a couple of poles and a platform to repair the guy ready for evacuation. They promised me that. That was $1,000 device. Now I believe it's $2,000, but back then it was well over $200, the value of that toy.
Wow.
They put me in a high chair. They took me in. My mother was left outside. She wasn't able to monitor. My foster mom wasn't able to monitor what was going on. They put me in a high chair. They took down a ukulele, telling me that they were going to wrap it up and give it to me. Then two large orderlies. Now, I'm a small kid. I was always small until I hit puberty. And they held me down. They strapped me down. I'm yelling. They jam a needle in me. And the last thing I remember is them placing one of these round devices with the colors that goes around in a circle and a light behind it. A hypnotic device. And I blacked out. During the entire time I was on that drug, there was only one time that I became conscious. And that was, I was in front of the couch, laying down in a ball, and my teeth felt like they were grinding into each other so badly that they felt like clay. And I was told later on by doctors and found out medically that that was a full-on seizure.
Wow.
It was so bad that years afterwards I was still getting seizures and I had to take Dilantin. Now here's the kicker. They knew that Dilantin by the time I was taking that medication, caused softening of the bones. I didn't even hit puberty. So during my entire pubescent era, my bones are soft. I got scoliosis, I got spinal bifida, but the doctor, her name again is, Lisa's, I gotta go ahead and find out. I have the documents in my place. But basically I called out the county later on that she had removed documents from the department. She had stayed in DPSS. She hadn't went on to DCFS because she was one of the ones who committed crimes. But she kept my foster file. She kept it in DPSS.
Why?
Well, years later, get this. Basically to go ahead and protect herself from crimes. And also to use against me, because one of the things in those documents I found out, and this is by hearsay, but it's by one of the oldest people that had access to the file at that time, that I was a great detective, that I had an uncanny ability to suss out information, discover, pull out information, and that I had to be watched because of that, because I would be a problem. And I didn't understand how that would be a problem. That should be an asset for any child. Any parent would be, proud of a child who was able to dig up information. But there's such a paranoid agency, self-protective agency, that this was a problem rather than a great thing for a child to go on later on and become a productive citizen. So instead of it being an asset, it was a detriment to them. Because I knew what was going on in foster home. My foster mom sold weed out the front door, to pay her taxes later on. She robbed, after she stopped being a foster mom, she was a gun-toting grandma West Covina. Mary Ruth Blanco, look it up. 1995, December, she robbed a gas station at gunpoint. Her excuse? The tax man was taking her house. Pause it.
Sure.
That's Bill.